Hi, this is the cartoon Koala, and Sid the Science Kid was a really creepy show. Though I already talked about the show itself for like 10 minutes in my hour-and-a-half long video ranking a bunch of old PBS shows. So you can watch it if you want to and haven't yet, or skip to this timestamp if you just want to hear me ramble about Sid the Science Kid specifically. Basically, it was a PBS Kids show made by the Jim Henson Company of all people, about this lame kid named Sid, voiced by a 40-year-old man, who in every episode goes to his preschool of 4 kids for some reason, to learn about science through song, dance, and comedy? All done in crappy mocap animation. But hey, I used to like the show fine, and despite all its creepiness, the show clearly did something right, as it lasted for 4 years with 2 seasons and 67 episodes, and even won a couple awards. And of course, there's the subject of today's video, Sid the Science Kid the movie, a made-for-TV movie based on the show, which aired on PBS shortly after the series' end on March 25th, 2013, to wrap up the show's story, I guess? And I was there for the premiere. I actually mentioned this in my aforementioned tier list video and said it probably needed its own review someday. Well, that day's today. It's weird. I don't recall many other PBS shows at the time getting their own standalone TV movies. At least not with the movie as their subtitle. When they have the movie as their subtitle, that's how you know they're serious and want you to expect a definitive cinematic experience of the franchise. So maybe this movie will be able to deliver something better and grander than the show could ever produce. Who knows? I doubt it, but let's find out anyway. The movie starts off with 84 seconds of opening credits. All the while, we're zooming through space as generic epic music plays, which I'm sure is supposed to look cool, but the graphics are noticeably primitive. Almost reminds me of Space Dancing. You know, back in 2003, except the planets don't have the creepy faces. If you actually read the credits,
they're animation credits. They go really fast because nobody cares about them.
You'll notice the absolutely absurd amount of producers listed. Producers, associate producers, executive producers, associate executive producers. Are there any other producers I should know about? And apparently, Sid and his friends singing can be heard all the way from space as we zoom into the Earth right as they're finishing singing the "I'm Looking for My Friends" song, as featured in every episode of the show. Actually, the only song from the show included in this movie. I guess this does confirm that Sid the Science Kid does in fact take place on a post-apocalyptic Earth and not an alien planet or something. Definitely after some horrible nuclear fallout which killed off most of humanity and turned the remaining few into these horrific multicolored human Muppet hybrids that we see today. Something that I can already see has definitely not improved from the show is the animation. It's just as cheap and uncanny looking as it was in the show itself. But I already went on my spiel about the show's animation in my aforementioned tier list video, so I'll try my best not to comment on it going forward. But right after that, we see another thing that hasn't improved, the comedy. It's just as infantile as it was in the show.
Hello, I am a robot. I want to meet Gabriella.
That's good.
You'll notice that pretty much every joke in the movie is punctuated by the characters in the universe laughing, almost like the film's own version of a laugh track. Which, when the characters in your movie are laughing more at their jokes than the audience is, that's a pretty bad sign. I know, like the show, this movie is for really little kids, but there is a way to make humor that can be enjoyed by really little kids while still having at least something for the older folks in the audience. I mean, they got Christopher Lloyd as a guest star in this movie, and that's a name that I highly doubt any preschool child would know. Though I guess I'm getting ahead of myself now, aren't I? Then we meet... Oh god, no, not Miss Susie. Don't eat my soul, please. Susie sits them in front of the computer where we get some good old-fashioned exposition via this primitive-as-heck website. Seriously, what is this? The robot on the website tells them everything that they already know, but we don't, that they've entered the Super Ultimate Science Museum Science Fair Challenge, the winners of which get a chance to see the Super Ultimate Science Museum before anyone else. The winners include, from the ages 10 to 12 category, young Young and Nunu from China, who built their own rocket. May, of course, shows them China on the globe. And from the 4 to 6 category, Sid and Gabriella from the US, of course. If this is where the US is heading, then I might need to flee to Canada. That was a really stupid joke, but I'm keeping it in. The class inexplicably all unanimously wants to see Sid and Gabriella's video again, though of course the real reason is for the audience's sake, so we can get some more forced exposition. Their science project was this weird lever system that probably actually defies the laws of physics. But what, did you expect this educational kids show about science to be scientifically accurate? It was at the very least better than Gerald and May's experiment.
We thought plants would grow if we gave them the same food that helped people grow. Milk, orange juice, oatmeal, but they didn't grow very tall at all.
No, they just died. Fast.
Oh yeah, and I haven't even mentioned Gerald yet. He's his usual annoying self, constantly screaming in his usual chain-smoking 40-year-old man voice, but at the very least they had the courtesy to write him out for most of the movie. I guess the kids can only take one adult, so Sid decides to take... Oh no. Of all people, why did you have to pick Grandma? And they treat us like it's a Marvel reveal or something, like I'm supposed to be excited about this.
Hey, who's gonna take us to the museum?
Oh, I know someone who's always up for an adventure.
Now, stop me if you've heard this one before. A group of kids from different countries win a contest to get early access to a new building created by a reclusive, questionably sane, and questionably ethical, but brilliant scientist, where they end up learning valuable lessons. The main boy takes a grandparent. Oh, and get this, they have to print golden tickets to get in. Christopher Lloyd as Willy Wonka. For some reason, I don't think this will end well.
Welcome to my chocolate factory. It's time to die.
They get to the science museum in a scene that is clearly supposed to be impressive, showing off the animation, but it's ruined by the fact that the animation isn't all that impressive. And then they meet Young and Nunu and Young's mother, Meow, who came all the way from China just to visit this one science museum. And also have noticeably fake Chinese accents.
It's nice to meet you. I'm Nunu.
And I'm her teammate, Young.
Through some more infantile humor, we learn that the Chinese kids sure are a lot smarter than these American children.
I am the Earth floating too close to the sun. My troposphere is melting.
Melting the lowest portion of the Earth's atmosphere. Good one, Young.
Yeah, troposphere. He probably can't melt that.
This is actually a major arc in the movie. The Yankees, Sid and Gabriella trying to impress the Asian children. It gets very old after a while. They then meet the wacky and questionably sane and questionably ethical man behind it all, voiced by, oh, Christopher Lloyd, you poor soul. To be fair, he doesn't sound completely dead inside while recording these lines. What's his character's name again?
Dr. Bobby B. Phenomenon.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Doc Brown if that's alright with you guys. So Doc Brown lists off the planets in the solar system, minus Earth, and very noticeably leaves out Uranus. Insert Uranus joke of your choice here.
I'm sorry, Fry, but astronomers renamed Uranus in 2620 to end that stupid joke once and for all.
Oh, what's it called now?
Eurectum.
Doc Brown tells them that he won't be giving them the tour, because I guess Christopher Lloyd was being paid by the line or something, so they needed an excuse to write him out of the movie. But instead, he introduces his 5 tour guide robots, who all have distinct designs and unique abilities and specialities, one of them being a poop joke.
You might say that Popo takes care of the poo-poo.
Only for none of them to be their actual tour guides. But instead, Doc Brown's newest and most advanced robot invention, BobbyBot, who hasn't actually been tested yet. Yep, he's making these children his guinea pigs. Oh, and he explicitly tells them not to change anything on the control panel, so I'm sure they never will. Doc Brown also makes sure to split them from the adults, which definitely seems suspicious, but is justified by the fact that BobbyBot conveniently has a built-in holographic communicator communicator. As much as I'm glad Gerald and Grandma and Sid's dad aren't here for most of it, I do think it's kind of weird in the movie based on your show to only have 2 characters actually from your show that do anything for most of the time. We also find out that apparently this tour is only 2 hours in advance of the grand opening. What is this, SML's Patreon? If you're wondering what was the point of introducing these 5 other robots if BobbyBot was just gonna lead the tour all by himself, both in and out of universe, it was actually more forced exposition, so these robots could have this lame subplot of secretly following the tour and trying to sabotage it, I guess. It pretty much leads to nothing but juvenile slapstick, and BobbyBot figures them out and puts an end to it around halfway through this already very short movie. It kind of feels like a waste to introduce all these colorful robots with different designs and abilities, only for them to barely do anything. Oh, and look, now they're ripping off Jurassic Park too. Sid impresses the Chinese kids with his preschool level dinosaur knowledge, only for the Chinese kids to shift the discussion to dinosaur fossils recently discovered in their country, which I'm pretty sure just consists of made-up, vaguely Chinese dinosaur-sounding gobbledygook that the movie presents as scientific fact.
Oh yeah, like the young Tyrannosaurus, a theropod dinosaur from the Jurassic time period. It was 20 feet long, weighed 3 tons, with a bony knob on the end of its nose.
Look, I'm okay with a little bit of science fiction, but to me, it just seems weird in a movie based on an educational, science-based kid show to mix in blatant lies with the actual science facts. We then get some gas humor with all the kids demanding BobbyBot make the T-Rex burp, and some piss humor with a robot pissing himself with oil. The show's humor was always pretty immature, but I mostly remember it just being bad puns, which, don't get me wrong, this movie still has plenty of that, but I just don't remember all this potty humor. We start to see that the Yanks have a bit more in common with the Chinese kids than they thought. Sid and Yang Yang bond over American movies like Star Wars or Space Explorers as they call it here.
Space adventure, it's an adventure in space!
And Gabs and Nunu bond over playing soccer.
Hey, you know what would be cool to play in one of these tunnels? A game of indoor soccer.
What are you talking about? To play soccer when you want a wide open space, not this long, narrow tunnel? This seems like it'd be a terrible place to play indoor soccer. They enter a beehive, which means I can play this clip.
Oh, no, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
And of course it prompts BobbyBot to make a bunch of terrible bee puns, which means I can play this clip. Then the other robots come in and one of them pisses oil again.
Commander Sid, leader of the Star Explorers, everyone to your stations and prepare for battle.
Right, so wear clean socks and bring a toilet plunger.
I don't get it. No, seriously, I don't get it. What was the joke there? Am I missing something? Someone, please explain to me why that was funny. Because I genuinely have no clue what the joke was supposed to be. They then go to a room of simple machines, and Yang Yang uses chopsticks as an example because of course he does.
Ooh, levers are my favorite simple machine.
I like them because they can help you eat.
Huh?
Chopsticks are levers too.
Oh, and Yang Yang's battle cry when he plays pretend lightsaber with Sid.
Shanghai, Hong Kong, Fuyang.
Okay, go ahead, Gabriella. Lift up the dump truck.
What? Me? No way! I'm too small. That truck is huge.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Then they enter the weather room where BobbyBot gets struck by lightning, and instead of telling the adults, the Chinese kids predictably try to take matters into their own hands and fix it themselves. They fail miserably, and BobbyBot goes completely haywire. Which to the writers of this movie seems to mean that he can do pretty much whatever he wants. Even if it makes no sense why Doc Brown would program that into him. While I don't find any of his antics here funny per se, at the very least Bruce Lanoyle's voice acting when BobbyBot snaps is admittedly kind of entertaining.
Welcome to the supermarket grocery store. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of accent that was supposed to be, but that's gotta be offensive to someone, right?
That's racist!
They have to retrace their steps as Bobby Bot wreaks havoc on the museum and ruins its exhibits in mostly incredibly stupid ways.
A singing dinosaur?
Oh yeah, baby.
Oh, a giant spider! That's not a giant spider. That's Bobby Bot.
Stupid! You're so stupid!
Doc Brown is surprisingly forgiven of them for ruining his museum, but everyone loses hope once it's announced that the museum is scheduled to open in 30 minutes. So it's up to Grandma to give her usual words of wisdom to the kids, really driving home the message of teamwork.
Well, we want to help, but we just don't know how.
Yeah, we're just kids.
Oh, now, that's just a big bowl of applesauce.
Yeah, a big bowl of applesauce. You've got it, Grandma. Also, there's totally some sort of tension between Doc Brown and Sid's grandma. They casually refer to each other on a first-name basis, despite having supposedly just met. Doc calling Sid's grandma Rose, which I wonder if her actual name was ever revealed before this movie. And Grandma seems to have quite a bit of influence on Doc.
Hey, Sid, your grandma's one smart cookie.
Maybe Doc is actually Sid's grandpa. It would explain where he got his love of science and inventions from. More on this later. She convinces him to let the kids find Bobby Bot while they fix the museum. Yes, give these inexperienced youngsters you just met, who both did one kind of cool though impractical science experiment, the responsibility of finding and fixing your star robot for your museum that's opening in 30 minutes, when they're the ones who broke him in the first place. All of this is starting to seem kind of suspicious. Like there's something they're not telling us.
I was frozen today!
Did you hear that?
Great Scott!
My other robots! They have to help us!
Hey, that wasn't Christopher Lloyd. Who the heck was that?
My other robots! They have to help us!
So the kids have to retrace their steps again to find Bobby Bot while completely falling for his obvious disguises, which is accompanied by an extremely cheesy montage song, much like songs from the show, that exists to really drill the movie's incredibly on-the-nose teamwork message into your head.
Me for you, you for me, that's the way it's gonna be.
If one of those backup singers sounds familiar, that's because it's actually Danny Jacob, a composer and songwriter for Phineas and Ferb, who pretty much any time there was a singing voice that wasn't one of the regular voice actors, 9 times out of 10 it was this guy. Particularly whenever Ferb would sing, they'd usually have this guy do it. So you might not have heard the name, but if you're anything like me, you've definitely heard his voice a lot. Actually, his voice can be heard in pretty much every episode.
Doofenshmirtz Incorporated!
He was actually also a songwriter for Sid the Science Kid and co-wrote this particular song. I have a feeling though if it was a Phineas and Ferb song, these lyrics would be intentionally cheesy for comedy purposes, unlike here where they probably just didn't put too much thought into them. Because, you know, it's a movie for babies. But all this means is that this movie is once again reminding me of something better I could be watching. During this montage, we also see very brief scenes of the other robots helping fix the museum, which makes this their only meaningful contribution to the film, and even then, it's sort of glossed over. The Chinese kids suddenly forget that being smart is pretty much their only character trait, and struggle to solve extremely obvious riddles, leaving the Yanks to take charge on the mission.
Bees communicate by doing a waggle dance and a round dance.
Okay, you didn't have to remind me of the Waggle Dance movie.
What were they thinking?
We then find out that the reason the Chinese kids weren't able to properly reprogram him the first time was because they didn't have enough time. Yeah, sure, not enough time. That's why.
What were they thinking?
So Sid has to distract Bobby Bot with his terrible jokes as the kids fix him, before we get the lowest of the lowbrow, Gabriella making stupid faces.
Those facial expressions are highly irregular and quite comic.
Look at the funny face! Look at the funny face!
And the Chinese kids are inexplicably able to fix him for real this time. They then briefly try to convince us that this is an actual movie by having the end of the Lookin' for My Friends song, as played at the beginning, be paralleled with this shot as sort of a bookend. You know, like real movies have. It's like poetry, it rhymes.
We did it all by ourselves. No one else, just us and us alone. Did I mention we worked alone?
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
They return Bobby Bot just in time for the museum opening, leading to a beautiful moment between a robot and his creator.
It's good to see you.
Wait, why does that line sound familiar?
It's good to see you. It's good to see you. It's good to see you.
Lazy! Bobby Bot also apologizes for dismissing the other robots after seeing how they helped fix the museum, in what just kind of feels like another forced way to further hammer in that teamwork message rather than an actual character arc. Then we watch this middle schooler get easily impressed by Sid's plastic toy microphone for babies. And as a reward for ruining his museum and then fixing it, Doc Brown gives them a lifetime pass and allows them to give tours. Are you serious? And you call this a grand opening? I count 13 guests total. What a joke. And of course, all of them besides the Chinese people are just models that they already had made for the show. Lazy! And the movie ends as they all decide to explore the museum some more, with the credits having a reprise of that great song from earlier. Though this version actually has some pretty sweet guitar. Well, that was Sid the Science Kid the movie. Was it better than the show? No. It was much worse. At least the show is only half an hour. Even at just 74 minutes, which is pretty short for a movie, this was a drag to sit through. I appreciate the attempt to create a bigger scale with it taking place in this huge high-tech science museum and going more science fiction than the usual episode, but when you don't have the higher animation budget, why even bother?
Oh, that explains the terrible animation. It was made by a Chinese animation company.
And it actually feels kind of small when the characters keep running back and forth between the same few rooms. And in terms of writing, ooh boy is it bad. The whole teamwork message is way too preachy and sometimes forced. It's educationally questionable at times. The character arcs are extremely repetitive, and the humor is absolutely non-existent to anyone who isn't a fetus. Besides maybe a couple of the voice performances, I can't think of anything to genuinely like here. And I know, I'm picking on something that is clearly made for very little kids, but even for something made for very little kids, I alluded to it earlier, but yeah, something like VeggieTales was made for very little kids, and that has appeal beyond that. I know not everything made for kids can necessarily also be made to appeal to adults, but at least make it so any adult forced to watch this with their kids wouldn't want to lie themselves under a steamroller while watching it. I mean, this is the Jim Henson Company, for goodness sake. And there are so many better kids movies out there, so unless you had a kid who was a really big fan of the show and really wanted to watch this, I couldn't even recommend it for that. Though if you want something to shut your kids up for an hour, this is at least better than YouTube Kids. And if you've got some friends over, you can maybe get some enjoyment out of ripping on this movie. As of recording this, the whole thing has been posted to YouTube for free, so it's really easy to watch. But this is not the end of this video, as I've actually formed a theory about this film, and Sid the Science Kid show itself after watching this film. And since this movie has taught me the value of teamwork, I think I'll do something I haven't done in a while and hand over the video to my friend and science expert MatPat to explain it. I actually haven't seen him in a while, so we'll see how this goes. Take it away, MatPat.
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory, and today we're going to be doing a theory on one of my childhood heroes, Sid the Science Kid. An inquisitive and science-obsessed kid always looking for answers. He definitely made me the theorist I am today. But we're not actually going to be talking about the show, but its 2013 film adaptation, fittingly titled Sid the Science Kid, the movie, which if you haven't watched, I highly recommend it. It's really good. The movie sees Sid and his friend Gabriella win a contest to get early access to the Super Ultimate Science Museum, which is run by a kooky scientist voiced by Christopher Lloyd, Back to the Future fame named Dr. Bobby B. Bonabon. The other two winners are two Chinese kids with the very real Chinese names of Yang Yang and Nunu. Their tour is led by Dr. Bonabon's newest and most high-tech robot, Bobby Bot. Throughout the movie, though, you start to notice some things that don't add up. Like, why would Dr. B explicitly separate the kids from their parents and use them to test his newest and most high-tech robot? Why would these two Chinese kids fly all the way from China just to visit this one science museum? Throughout the whole movie, the two of them are constantly beating the little kids in terms of scientific knowledge. But this all changes when Bobby Bot gets struck by lightning, prompting the Chinese kids to try and fix him by messing with his control panel, something Bonabon explicitly told them not to do. This, as expected, causes Bobby Bot to go completely haywire, and he starts wreaking havoc in the museum, and once they confess to Bonabon, he pretty much instantly forgives them for it.
It's okay. You're scientists. It's your nature. I probably would have done the same thing.
Weird. But what's stranger is what happens next, when Sid's grandma, Rose, gives everyone a little pep talk telling them exactly what they need to hear. During their conversation, Rose and Bonabon both refer to each other on a first-name basis, despite the fact that they supposedly have just met. And Rose is easily able to convince him to give these kids he just met, the ones who ruined his robot in the first place, the responsibility of finding and fixing him. Continuing the string of strange behavior, Bobby Bot starts giving them some extremely simple clues which the Chinese kids who are so smart earlier failed to solve, yet the preschoolers solve them with ease. And then, the Chinese kids inexplicably are able to fix Bobby Bot like they didn't totally fail at that, less than an hour before. And the cherry on top is that Bonabon rewards these kids who ruined and then helped fix his museum with lifetime passes and potential tour guide opportunities. So what's really going on here? Well, it's worth noting that Sid's grandpa was always mysteriously absent from the show, and you might just think this is because they didn't feel like creating another character model. But what if his grandfather was actually just hiding in plain sight this whole time? Let's look at the facts. Bonabon is the only elderly male character we ever see in the show as far as I'm aware. He's a scientist and inventor, which could explain where Sid got his passion for science and inventing, and there definitely seems to be some tension between him and Sid's grandma, Rose, as explained earlier. But then, why has he been gone all this time? Well, it's because he was working on the Science Museum, a museum he was making specifically for his grandson, not just to nurture his love and knowledge of science and invention, but also to give him and his friend a little confidence boost along the way by showing them that they can outsmart some big kids and do great things if they really put their minds to it. Yep, just like Willy Wonka, everything was all part of Bonabon's plan, which is why he is so forgiving. It's what he wanted to happen. Grandma's obviously in on it, but I also think the Chinese kids are in on it. It explains their inconsistent skills and intelligence, why some of the things they say don't add up, Sid and Gab wouldn't be the wiser, and why they're so nice to Sid and Gabriella. Because they were hired by Bonabon specifically to boost their confidence. Heck, I doubt they're even really from China, or that their names are actually Yang Yang and Nunu. But hey, that's just a theory, a game theory. Thanks for watching.